On hazardous duty for the last couple of weeks, King 5's Pat McReynolds embedded with the McChord Air Force Base flight crew, spending significant time on the ground in Iraq.
He and photographer Ken Jones reported right through the dangerous landing and multiple mortar attacks, all while documenting our local troops and airmen in action. They are now back home, and tonight Pat joins us with the first of his reports. Pat, it is nice to have you home safe again. I bet it was quite an experience to see what's happening in Iraq firsthand.
It definitely was. Tonight's story is all about making it into the war zone without being shot out of the sky. Now, our plan was to fly into Iraq under the cover of darkness, but there is such a need for supplies in the forward areas that our C-17 simply couldn't wait for the safest time to go.
Loadmasters, if we come under attack, I'm going to go ahead and hit the bailout alarm.
Roger, I'll probably see it before you guys.
And we'll just get the hell out.
In just a few hours, these men will fly into the lion's den.
For some reason, we do take a shot out there. The first person that sees it calls it out.
Their mission is to deliver tons of precious cargo to the men and women fighting on the front lines in Iraq.
We'll do our best to get the thing safely on the ground.
But to do that, this brave aircrew from McChord Air Force Base will have to land this heavy C-17 through a potential gauntlet of small arms fire and missiles.
Final approach is the critical time. This is when the pilots shut down all the lights and reduce engines so that they cool off the plane and reduce the chance of actually being targeted by a heat-seeking missile. These are life and death moments. And it's amazing that all of this started 3 days ago with a phone call.
Hello.
Captain Jason Allen has been expecting his phone to ring.
Tel number 058 Joker 11.
Alerts are common, and aircrews these days are gone for weeks at a time and have fewer moments to spend with their families.
Where am I going?
To Iraq.
And where else?
Germany.
That's right. 2 weeks. Give me a hug.
But saying goodbye to his son Brock and his wife Tasha will never be routine.
She realizes it's part of the job, but she doesn't like it. But she's really supportive of it, and that definitely helps.
The first leg of our journey takes us from McChord to Dover, Delaware, a brief stop to load the plane. These pallets hold anything from bombs and bullets to tires and toilet paper. No inch of the cargo hold is wasted, and loadmasters Ken Harp and Brian DeRosa make sure it is secure and balanced perfectly. A loose pallet can crush you, and too much weight in one direction can bring the plane down.
This is Charlie taxiway, and then the runway's right up there. Okay,
From Dover, we fly 8.5 hours to Rhein-Main Air Force Base in Frankfurt, Germany, where McChord's 4th Airlift Squadron currently runs the show.
We bumped it out to midnight. Yep.
It is here that we are told the bad news. Due to increased air traffic, pilot J.R. Borey will be forced to land the C-17 in Iraq in broad daylight.
Basically, they can't see you. It's harder for them to see you when we're blacked out. So we've got the advantage using the night vision goggles, so any little advantage that we've got helps.
But today they're going to be able to see us.
Well, hopefully not, but they could.
One final walk around as the captain looks for anything that will hamper our approach into the war zone.
A little excited, a little anxious, a little bit nervous, but we're ready to go do it.
Go. Climbing away. Gear up. Get up.
This leg will take us to Balad, Iraq, a base that is regularly shelled.
I reset the weights, and everything didn't change much.
Okay.
And so we should be okay.
Airman First Class DeRosa has been mortared the last 6 times he touched down, the last one landing only 10 yards away.
I think I was scared after the fact. It's sometimes things happen so fast, you just do what you're trained to do, and then after the fact you have time to think about it, and it gets to you.
Bullets don't have nobody's name, man. It gets you anytime.
That sober reality is squarely on the minds of these men. After all, it was a McChord C-17 that took a direct hit to an engine earlier in the war. That's why this approach has to be perfect.
We are clear to land. Clear slats, flaps are full.
As we break through the clouds, the Tigris River comes into view.
Altitude.
We are screaming to the ground now, dropping 10,000 feet per minute at an extreme angle.
Got some fires down there. So.
Everyone is now aware of what is called the clown nose, the big red button that we're told to punch if we spot an attack. It releases countermeasure flares to hopefully fool oncoming missiles. At this point, we are all scanning the horizon for hostile fire.
50. There's your 30 feet. Welcome to Iraq.
This time we were lucky. The insurgents took the afternoon off, but more danger is yet to come. Well, these air crews make several landings in hostile territory every month, and they say it is that tense and stressful every single time. And just a few days after that landing, our crew actually did come under fire. Luckily, they weren't hit. Now, Ken Jones and I did get a taste of what it is like to be attacked a few days later in Balad. We're going to show you that and the dangerous role our Fort Lewis soldiers are performing outside the wire tomorrow night at 5. Also, we are streaming these reports for our soldiers overseas on our website, as well as our blogs, photographs, and dozens of holiday greetings. If you'd like to check it out, just go to king5.com.
Great yarn.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Lots to tell this week. We're going to have fun putting these together.
Cool.
All right, Pat, thanks very much.
And tonight, we turn to King 5's Pat McReynolds, who just returned from northern Iraq 3 days ago.
And Pat, you were at Camp Anaconda, where hundreds of Fort Lewis soldiers are stationed, and we understand that this is a place that has been attacked more than any other base in Iraq.
That's right, Mimi. Although most of those mortar attacks, most of those mortars miss, and less than 10 people at Camp Anaconda have actually been killed during the entire conflict. Unfortunately, though, as we saw today in Mosul, it only takes one direct hit, and insurgents know that dining tents are where you can inflict most loss of life. Now, the troops that we ate with in similar facilities told us while you do know that an attack is possible at any time, as you'll see in tonight's report, they have to put it out of their minds in order to get their jobs done.
Welcome to Balad Air Base, the largest air base in all of the war. Right now, we are in a Black Hawk helicopter patrolling the perimeter about 40 miles north of Baghdad.
More than 850 Air Force cargo planes land every month in Balad, offloading millions of pounds of cargo, while their sleeker, faster cousins guard their backs. The base also houses Camp Anaconda, where more than 20,000 Army soldiers stand at the ready to respond to threats outside the fence line. No spot here is safe. But the most dangerous area is the North Gate, where 1,400 Iraqis stream into the base every day looking for work. And the man in charge of this vulnerable choke point wears a familiar badge back home.
It's very similar to being a King County deputy. Unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it.
Captain Stan Seo and Fort Lewis's 181st Support Battalion have the unenviable job of screening all of the Iraqi nationals coming through. Any one of them could be an insurgent carrying a bomb. Yelm native Rachel Gorka stands at the farthest point, well beyond the wire. She is the initial contact with the dangerous unknown.
Oh, every day I have to make sure I stay alert, you know, looking for suspicious things, you know, that someone might be wearing, or an extra puffy jacket or something. Just have to make sure I always watch, always keep an eye out.
Right next to her, Doug Peterson of Ording, who has already been knocked back by a mortar blast near the gate, but survived without a scratch.
If I think about it too much, I'll probably end up going to mental health or something like that and see the psychiatrist. The Iraqis say, inshallah, if God wills, and that's pretty much the way you got to go about life here.
Peterson has learned a lot from the men who join him in danger every morning, the Iraqi National Guard, trained by American forces and seemingly willing to take an active role in their country's rebirth.
The Americans, they give it to the people more security and more freedom and more democracy and a lot of jobs, and before it was nothing. We work as one team and our fate is one.
Even with all the security that they have to go through to get on the base, these Iraqis are actually happy that the Americans are here. They now have jobs and have money that they can bring back to their families that they never had in the Saddam regime.
We want in here, want a place very safe, no want a place danger. We no like explosion, no like bomb. Everywhere inside the Iraq very poor.
No money.
I no go in the school because the family very poor. I seek to work here, but the no work every day.
While these young faces cling to hope, a violent minority seeks to destroy it. 2 more mortar attacks today. This last one actually set off the red alert, so we had to scrap our chute, and now we're heading to a hardened bunker.
It's been probably 10 days. I can't really remember. Sometimes we go a long time without having them. Sometimes we have 5 or 6 in a day.
Iraq has no future if its people can't defend themselves.
Okay, stay on line. Adjust the perimeter. You got to adjust the perimeter.
The job to train the new Iraqi military has fallen on the men and women of Task Force Chinook.
When we first got here, I would have been very hesitant to go outside the wire on missions with these guys. I do it all the time now. We live with them. We eat with them. We sleep with them to a certain degree. I trust them. If I didn't trust them, I wouldn't be here.
Most of these Iraqi volunteers are farmers who show up only when they feel like it.
He was in the middle, so he could have control of the assault element. That was good.
But despite the lack of discipline, Sergeant Sean Clinch of Spokane sees potential and progress with every passing day.
A lot of us probably want to go home, and a lot of Americans would like to see their soldiers home, but that's only going to happen if the Iraqi security forces can step up to the plate and do the job. So being a part of that mission, it's the most important mission we have here in the country. I'm very proud to be a part of that.
Well, while they are getting better, U.S. officers readily admit it will be years before they can thoroughly train enough Iraqis to warrant a major pullout of American forces. Now, tomorrow we're going to take you inside the simulation of a dramatic convoy attack as a young Gig Harbor High School graduate prepares to lead her squadron all the way across the war-torn country. And as always, you can see all of our reports, blogs, pictures, and holiday greetings from the troops on king5.com.
Pat, I got to ask you, when you and KJ went to eat at the DFAC, the dining facility at Camp Anaconda, were you given any sort of warning about the potential target danger of such a facility?
You know, they don't have to warn you because you really already know that the roofs of ours, they weren't tents, they were actually like shacks. And they know that if a mortar drops on the top of them, it's going to come straight through. They aren't hardened bunkers like some of the other buildings. So you're really taking your lives into your own hands every time you go there.
As we saw today.
Exactly.
Thanks,
Thank you, Pat.
Fort Lewis soldiers train here in the U.S. to spot suicide attacks, and that training continues, of course, when the troops actually deploy to the war zone.
Our King 5 News team got an exclusive look inside one of those chaotic simulations while on the ground at Camp Anaconda. King 5's Pat McReynolds returned from Iraq to bring us this report. Pat.
Well, Lori, even in simulation, it was impossible for the soldiers to escape without any injury. Now, as you're about to see, suicide attacks happen quickly with little or no warning. It is a reality that our local troops in Balad face every day.
Let's focus on the training today because we have a serious mission tomorrow. If we have a flat tire, we're changing a tire. If we have somebody that needs medevac, we're going to put them on a litter if that's what's needed, and we're going to get them out.
Lieutenant Rachel Asherbranner is about to perform skills they never taught her at Gig Harbor High School.
Does anybody have any questions about what's happening? This is the first time we've had the opportunity to come out and get this realistic with the training because we've got such an important mission coming up.
In less than 24 hours, she will lead this convoy from the 29th Signal Battalion all the way across Iraq into Kuwait.
It's radio check, over.
The question of an attack from insurgents isn't if, but when.
6, move out at this time, over.
That's why they are using the last few hours of relative safety simulating what could happen tomorrow, starting with a simple flat tire and some threatening foreigners.
Be advised, 5 G's, over.
Roger, 1105, local nationals, over. Miller, you got him?
Yes, ma'am.
Miller, cover those guys. Watch their hands. Watch their hands. We got one moving towards us. Keep him away from the truck.
Keep him moving.
Keep him away from the truck.
Back up from the truck. Back up from the truck.
American. Jorgensen, get those guys away from our truck. Hey, who's got it flat?
Asherbranner keeps her soldiers sharp.
What's the time on the tire changeover?
We're going to need another 5 minutes.
Jorgensen!
Calling out orders to men who on average are a foot taller than her.
Miller, how's it look? It's hard to yell at these guys, but most of the time, we'll break into a smile and laugh and joke about it. Sergeant Howard, what do we got? When I first came here, I treated them with respect. Everybody's a person, whether they're a PFC or a sergeant first class or, a captain. I think I treat them how I want to be treated.
Those relationships are about to be tested under fire.
Hey, what's going on?
With the stress of a deadly attack.
C1 is damaged by suicide bomber.
Hey, what's going on?
The young lieutenant wanted to be a doctor and still wonders sometimes how she ended up in the Signal Battalion and in this part of the war.
I know these guys will, take care of me and I'll take care of them in the situation. If it happens to us, there's nothing we can do about it. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
What happened? Got hit in the left leg, hanging by the flesh just below the knee.
1-7, this is 1-6. I need backup Jack up to 206. Move Aiden Litter team to HHC 1 over.
Watching her in action, it's tough to picture a sensitive girl from Seattle who still cries every time she leaves home.
My boyfriend drove me to the airport, and I hugged him on the, SeaTac right there at where you drop him off. I didn't even want him to come inside, and I was crying. I gave him a hug and said, "I love you. I'll be home soon." And LZ team, I need you to start prepping an LZ. We're gonna have to move.
But on this afternoon, she and her team know there is no time for nostalgia.
Jorgensen, mark our location. Get it on the GPS.
Daydreaming can get you killed.
When you're up and doing your mission, there's not really time to feel sorry for yourself or miss home too much.
When the smoke finally clears, 2 insurgents are dead, but they have critically wounded 2 soldiers. This is not an unrealistic scenario.
1, 2, 3, up.
But even after facing this test, Rachel remains undaunted.
I love it. Actually, I'm glad I'm a lieutenant, because if you're any higher rank, you don't get to do this kind of stuff anymore. Sergeant Tracy, make sure we got his weapon. I've always told them that it's really about, I work for them, not the other way around. Go, go! I want to do whatever I can for those guys to make it better for them so they can do their job and we can accomplish the mission. I love it. I like where I am.
Now, the 29th Signal Battalion is a good example of how our soldiers are doing tasks that seem outside their job description. Now, they normally are in charge of setting up all of the wiring and communications on the base, but they are set to come home in a few weeks, and to do that, they have to convoy to Kuwait and escort their replacements all the way back to Balad. A dangerous last assignment, to say the least. Well, tomorrow we're going to go ahead and take you inside the base hospital, where injured soldiers are choppered in straight from the field. Their stories of survival are simply amazing.
That was a very exciting drill, just to watch them drill and hope that they don't have to actually experience that.
It's very chilling with the news that we've seen, of course, in the last couple of days.
Rumsfeld said today, force protection, #1 priority.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pat.
Pat.
Thank you.
With the suicide bombing in Mosul this horrible week has reminded us of the costs of war. And for every life lost, there are dozens of seriously injured young men and women.
King 5's Pat McReynolds and photographer Ken Jones just returned from Iraq with an up-close look at life on the lines. Pat, battlefield medicine, soldiers traumatically injured in combat. They're taken to these facilities for repair and healing, and you saw that process in action, right?
Yeah, we did, and it was just as touching as you could possibly imagine. You know, in many ways, we forget that there are thousands of soldiers who now live with the literal scars of war. Our new body armor is better at protecting vital organs, but there are now more soldiers surviving with lost limbs. Most of them will be home for the holidays, but they are now going to experience the holidays in a way they had never imagined.
These patients are coming from Baghdad.
Welcome to medical limbo.
All right, bear left, left.
These specially trained Air Force nurses, medical techs, and doctors make up the CASIF, a facility right on the flight line that is half airport terminal, half emergency room.
Welcome to Balad. The local time right now is 2020.
This team stabilizes soldiers straight from the front and makes sure they're still breathing when they arrive at a German hospital. They regularly see the worst the war has to offer.
Sir, I haven't really read the Bible. Just slowly I've been...
But it's young patients like Lance Corporal Jason Luke who keep them coming back.
He wants us to express our humanity to him, too.
Jason's squad was clearing houses in Fallujah when gunfire suddenly erupted from a second-story window. Bullets tore through his arm.
I was useless. I didn't have a weapon. I couldn't fire back. I had no function whatsoever, so... What I was, we're always trained is take cover, take cover. And
Jason dove behind a wall, but hand grenades started falling at his feet. He credits another corporal for helping him to safety and saving his life.
Because otherwise, I honestly thought I would probably end up bleeding out. Because after he put the tourniquet on and stuff, and I'm looking on the ground, just my arm, and I was just soaked in blood.
Chaplain Gary Brooks hears too many stories like Jason's. He is one of many in this hospital who use words and reminders of home to try to erase the nightmares that replay in the minds of these wounded young men and women.
Oh, gentlemen, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm fine, sir. Thank you.
But it is the resiliency of those same patients that energizes the staff.
I think I can do it because I gain just a deep appreciation for them and a compassion for them. And that helps me it doesn't immobilize me.
It really gets difficult bringing home remains. That really makes for a very solemn flight.
Continual visions of flag-draped coffins and teens with lost limbs forced Sergeant Ed Miller to take extra time off.
3 and 4 clear.
His C-17 crew regularly transports the wounded out of the war zone.
It's tough to see us going into where we are and bringing guys out the way we are, either boxes or missing parts, and bringing them back to Germany to a whole new life that they never expected. That's just difficult.
Back on the ground, staff members trade stethoscopes for guitars, trying to create holiday spirit. That's not an easy task. Jason is still facing several surgeries and years of rehabilitation, and now wonders how he will ever explain what he has seen to his family back home.
They take no offense, I could tell you a million times, but you wouldn't understand unless you were there.
No, sir.
But the other men and women in these beds know. With just a glance, they acknowledge a shared horror that forms the bonds between veterans.
Lord, we ask your protective care and your aid be with Hernando's and Greg.
It would be enough to turn anyone against such a gruesome business. But as he heads home to see his young wife, Jason has no regrets.
I don't know, it was a great experience. You know, I'll never change it for anything, you know, something I'll be able to look back on for the rest of my life and be able to tell my grandkids and great-grandkids. It's an experience of a lifetime.
It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen.
Now, on a final note tonight, Ken Jones and I cherished this experience and the opportunity to bring these stories of these brave men and women to you. They are quality individuals whose jobs change our lives, and we wish them a speedy and a safe return home to the Northwest.
Bless them all, and our thanks to them all, too, and to you and KJ. Good job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Well, just about every morning we tell you about the violent attacks that U.S. forces deal with on a daily basis in Iraq. And now we are giving you a first-hand look.
King 5's Pat McReynolds and photographer Ken Jones are embedded with the C-17 crew out of McChord. They are now at Camp Anaconda near Balad, Iraq. That is north of Baghdad. And we're told that that camp just came under fire. We want to go to Pat now. And Pat, good to see you again. You've only been there a couple of days, but give us an idea what the last couple of minutes have been like and what it's like for the troops there.
Well, Alan, you'll notice that you'll see a flickering of fluorescent lights. We had a nice shot set up for you, but we've had to move underneath the Army Public Affairs Office and behind these giant concrete barriers here behind me, because literally about 5 minutes ago, the base came under attack with mortar fire. Now, we heard the explosion. It was a loud explosion, but it was about a mile away, the loud whoop that we heard, and immediately the sirens went off. All the soldiers went running in to grab their body armor. In fact, we've got a couple out here on alert right now that are in their body armor and their Kevlar right now. Now, we've been told that they're still investigating, so we don't know whether or not this mortar hit a building or if anyone has been injured. We'll have to get that information to you a little bit later. But here at Camp Anaconda, this base is one of the largest in Iraq, and it is hit with mortar fire more often than any other base. We had felt lucky because the entire time we were here, they had not come under attack. In fact, the attacks had decreased significantly since the assault on Fallujah. But as you can see, this place is still anything but safe. In fact, I want to go ahead and show you some video that Ken Jones shot on the flight line earlier. In fact, this is a McChord C-17 coming in for a landing. The pilot thought he saw a missile headed his way, so he dropped flares, you see there in the video, to divert that strike. As I mentioned, Ken captured the false alarm, but I think it illustrates, as well as this mortar attack, the level of alert here and the tension that still exists. Of course, it is still an exciting time to be here because of the people who are here, the soldiers who are here, that we're going to bring the stories back to you. Not only are the McChord C-17s playing a significant role in the supply moving across all of our soldiers across Iraq, but also we spent earlier today with the 29th Signal Battalion from Fort Lewis, who is right now, preparing for a convoy all the way across the country to Kuwait. In fact, they're being led by a feisty young lieutenant straight out of Gig Harbor High School. They, of course, are going to be here for the holidays, so they can't be home. So we're going to stay here, and we're going to bring their stories to you. Alan, Joyce.
I'm curious, Pat, there was a poll that we reported on this morning that more than half of Americans don't think there will ever be a democracy in Iraq. What are the soldiers saying to you about their impressions of this conflict and the reasons they're there?
Well, Joyce, I think if you pulled all the soldiers here, it would probably be pretty close to what you have back there, back home. In fact, it's a good cross-section of society. You know, it's just as if we didn't agree with the direction that King 5 was going, yet we all know we have a job to do, and we would still do it to the best of our ability. That's what these soldiers are doing here. And as a matter of fact, many that we have talked to, they support this war effort. They definitely support their commander-in-chief. There is also the other side. I talked to an officer yesterday who had seen one of the horribly injured soldiers in one of these mortar attacks, who had lost both his legs and his arm, and he told me that he's seen enough. As soon as his time is up here, which is about 3 weeks from now, he's done. He's getting out of the military. So, of course, you've got all sides. It's a good cross-section here. But one thing that is definitely clear is that they are all very professional, and they know the risk that they are taking on.
Pat, very quickly, what's next for you and Ken? What can we expect?
Well, as soon as we're done with this live shot, Ken and I are heading over to the military hospital here at Camp Anaconda, and we're going to be talking to some of those injured soldiers. And then, I think you can hear the sirens going off directly behind me. Is that the all clear, guys?
Yeah, that's the all clear.
Okay, we're now getting the all clear here at Camp Anaconda, which is good news. So that means that they haven't found any other unexploded munitions, and they can take off all of their armor here. We're going to go to the hospital. We're going to talk to those injured soldiers. And then tomorrow, we're jumping on a helicopter. We're going to take a tour around the immediate area. We're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about when we get back, and we look forward to putting those stories together for you.
All right, we look forward to seeing them. Thanks very much. Really appreciate all your work in the field. Ken Jones, Pat McReynolds, near Balad, Camp Anaconda for you live.
Stay safe, Pat. We'll see you guys soon.
King 5's Pat McReynolds and photographer Ken Jones are heading to Iraq along with a C-17 crew from McChord Air Force Base. Just a short while ago, I talked with Pat as his plane was making its way toward Iraqi airspace. It's a 4.5-hour flight from Rhein-Main Air Base in Germany, just outside Frankfurt, to his destination in Iraq. It is the landing the C-17 crew takes very seriously.
On final approach, when we finally do start heading into Iraq and getting close to where we're going to land, these pilots do all kinds of evasive maneuvers. They try to make sure that their approach is different every time. They don't want to get painted by any heat-seeking missiles, and if they do, they need to be ready for it. So this is a pretty tense moment.
The plane spends only a few hours on the ground, offloading supplies, and it's back to Germany right away. Pat will be spending some time in Iraq. He and photographer Ken Jones will post a journal of their experience on king5.com. To read their daily dispatches, just log on to king5.com.